Welcome back. Today I want to talk about creating a path. We're going to mask this Wacom tablet out of the background, and we are going to do it with a vector mask, so we need to have a path drawn. We're going to do that with the pen tool. And I know most of you, or some of you, are probably comfortable with the pen tool. Others maybe not so much. So we'll go over this and try to get you comfortable with creating paths. Alright, so the keyboard shortcut for pen tool is, yes, that is right, P for pen tool. And we can see, if we come over here, we can see the pen tool. And since we have a little triangle down here in the corner, that means that there's more tools inside that pen tool, or palette, that tool palette. So if we click on that, we can see we have a free-form pen tool, an add anchor point tool, a delete anchor point, and a convert point tool. I generally just use the pen tool, and if we have it set up right, we should have access to these other features of the pen tool just by using our modifier keys. Okay? And we will do that right now by going up here, and we want to make sure that this box is checked. We're up in the control bar of the pen tool. And if this box is checked, it says auto add delete. So when we hover over paths, we'll be able to auto add a point, or if we hover over a point, then we'll be able to delete that point. Alright, so we are going to get started, and I like to zoom in as far as I possibly can. And using the modifier keys to pan and zoom is helpful for this. So Command spacebar allows me to zoom. I can click and drag and zoom. So if I drag to the right, I zoom in. If I drag to the left, I zoom out. Okay. So we're going to zoom in, and I didn't have to go back and forth over to my toolbar. Once I release those modifier keys, I'm right back into my pen tool. So we're going to click and click. And this is how I like to create a path. I like to just rough it out. I know some of you have trouble with trying to click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. And oftentimes I will hear comments from students that, you know, that's a much easier way than what I've been doing it. If you try to pull these things, sometimes you're successful and sometimes you're not. Now here on this, since we have kind of bump, 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 I would probably maybe try to do that with a layer mask. So maybe I'm just going to rough this out once again, and then come back in with a brush and be a little more exact with that mask. And that's the cool thing with Photoshop and layers and stuff. We can have both a vector mask and a layer mask. Pretty cool. Alright, so I'm just going to go around. I think there's another point there. I'm just going to go around, and like I said, I call this roughing it out. I'm just holding down spacebar to pan. And you'll notice we have not gone over to the toolbar. I'm going to click here, and you notice I have this straight line segment. We are going to come back and fix that later on. Just roughing, 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 and then we'll edit. And we are back at the start. So whenever you get back to the start of your path, you're going to hover over that, and you'll see your pen tool turn into this little O, this cursor. You know, the program is going to kind of tell you where you're at on these points and stuff. So I'm going to click and close that point. And whenever you're in the pen tool, if we hold down Command or Control on the PC, we should be able to get our white arrow tool. And this is real handy because I'm not going back. You haven't seen me go back and forth. All I've done is grab the pen tool, and I'm able to do most of my editing just by using the pen tool, holding down Command. And that's going to be a big time saver for you, even if you're working in Illustrator. Um, it just makes things much easier. So you'll see that I am coming back around, and as I hover over a line segment, it turns into the plus sign, and if I hover over a point, it's going to turn into a minus sign. So plus to add, minus to delete. So we're going plus, and then I'm going to hold down Command. Ha! Didn't go back over the toolbar, did we? And then sometimes when I have these these corner points, once I come back and I get this as a smooth curve and a smooth curve, I'll just come back in here and delete that. And now, as I drag these control handles, I can have a nice smooth transition from this point to this point, and I don't have kind of like a middleman in there causing a hard edge or a corner point. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Now some of these, sometimes you can get too many points in. I try to have as few points as possible on my path, and I'm just holding down spacebar and panning, trying to get over to the edge. I'm going to hold down Command. That allows me to select my point. And now I need to add one here. I've got a straight line segment between these 2 points, and we're going to turn it into a curve. So I click, then hold down Command and try to pull my point. And you generally try to want to get in the middle of those 2 points. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes you just have to kind of play with it. You have to either pull it forward or pull it back to get it just right. Holding down Command. Alright, so now this is an S curve, so what I'm going to do is come right here and where it intersects the image, I'll click a point, and now I'm just going to drag this handle. So I'm going to drag it down first, and then I'm going to pull it to make that arc fit into there. And like I said, sometimes it's better just to leave this, to leave this out a little bit, let a little bit of white show, and then we'll come in with a brush and create that bump. That's much quicker than trying to do this. And that's okay with me if you want to try that. It'll kind of get you, or make you aware that we can have both vector masks and layer masks inside of Photoshop. And the only problem I don't like about Photoshop's pen tool is that we don't have any opportunity to change that gray outline. At least I don't know. If you guys hear of anything, let me know, because that is really hard to see, and I wished I could change that to a dark black color. And once again, here's a kind of an organic edge where it has some soft edges rather than a hard edge, and I'm just going to let that ride like that, and then I'll come in with my layer mask and clean that up. Pen tool is good for these hard edge objects like this tablet, but then when you have a combination of hard edge and soft edge, we have to address that, and that's how I will do it. So it's going to make your life much easier if you can get comfortable with trying to use your modifier keys, your spacebar and spacebar command to zoom. Now on this one, I'm going to use my up and down arrow key to nudge it into place. So once I select that point, if I want to fine tune, I can do that by nudging. Hold down Command, gives me my white arrow. tool, holding down spacebar to pan. And here I'll just click on it to select it and nudge it up with my arrow tool. Now, the higher res image you're working on, the better off you're going to be on this. So make sure that you're working on, on your high res images. And we'll leave that point, but I'm going to move it back a little bit. And I'm going to convert this point. So if we want to convert, all we have to do is hold down Option and drag. And now you see we've turned that corner point into a curve point. And see, we're not going back over here and getting these tools. You see the convert point, the delete, and the add anchor point. We're just using our modifier keys to get to those same tools. I hope you can see this all right, what I'm doing. And you want to make sure that you get it as accurately as possible. This has a little bump in it here, just ever so slightly. And like I said, I'm not too worried. I'm not going to keep this cord on there, so I'm just going to let that go across there straight. I'm not too concerned about this transition or this alias, anti-alias softness of the image. I want it to be pretty dark, so I'm kind of cheating to that inside edge of the image a little bit. And what's going to happen when I mask this, I'm going to see some of this edge in here, this orange, and I'll probably go around and try to retouch some of that out, darken it up or something like that. So, all right, so we have our path, and I would suggest naming this path. And now all we have to do is turn that into a vector mask. So that's a real simple thing to do. So we want to load this path. In other words, we want to see it like this. We want to see our points and everything. And now that it's loaded, we can come up here into our control panel. And we see this little button here. And we'll just say mask. And there's our vector mask. And we'll see what it looks like. I generally will put it on a red background and then kind of evaluate how well I did my masking. See whether or not we have any white edges and stuff like that. So that's what we're going to do for our tablet. I want you to make it nice and clean. You can keep the cord if you want to or not. And now if we wanted to come over here, kind of talk about this layer mask here. Now that we have this vector mask, we can create a layer mask, and hopefully most of you know how to do a layer mask. But if not, I'll show you here real quick. We're going to make sure that our layer is selected. And we'll create our layer mask button down here, and now you'll see that we have a vector mask and a layer mask. And if I choose my brush tool and now paint with black, and I'm not going to do all this. If I paint with black, now I can come in here. Oops. Make sure you're on your layer mask. Now if I come in here, I can start painting. I'll get it right. Now if I come in here and I start painting, I can start painting that organic bumpiness away. Okay? And we want to just try to get all that white space away. And that's how I would do that. And we could come in here and just clean it up the best you can. All right. I think that's it for now. I will see you down the road in yet another video tutorial. Thank you.